Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you, Jeff.
Good to see you, Sally.
We're going to get started here in a few minutes. Just let everybody join. Welcome, everybody, to our part 5 webinar on AI and customer service. These are always fun. We're excited today, especially to share an actual deep dive into an experience that we've had, tangible experience, which I think hopefully everyone will appreciate. Alrighty, just give it another minute or so. We'll jump right in.
Awesome.
And
Excited.
for those that have joined, we are going to be recording this as well. Happy to share it afterwards. This is part 5 of our webinar series on AI and customer experience. All right, a few seconds and we will get going. All right. Was that the clock?
Just got a LinkedIn notification that it's about to begin.
Okay, we are about to begin. Welcome, everyone. All right, Jeff, you ready to do this?
Always ready. Let's do it.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. I'm Sally Hurley, CEO of VIP Desk. I'm joined by Jeff Cramp, our Chief AI Officer. Welcome, Jeff.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Thank you, Jeff, for joining me again. This is our part 5 of a series that we're doing, webinars on AI and the customer experience. And today we're going to be talking about scaling, integration, optimization, and really doing a deep dive on a case study, a real actual case study with one of our clients. And just in terms of context, we, VIP Desk, we've been in the BPO industry for many, many years. And, us, just like many other BPOs, have jumped into the AI world. We have experience now helping our clients design AI solutions that take care of the routine tasks while making room for humans to help other humans when needed and when appropriate for that ultimate experience. So getting a right mix of that, that's who we are. So we're speaking from our own experience. And today, in terms of our agenda, we're going to talk about the considerations as you look to implement AI, the technical foundations for effective scaling of that AI, and then continuous optimization. It's not one and done or launch it and leave it or whatever those phrases are. Troubleshooting, common pitfalls. As I mentioned, our case study deep dive, we're going to open it up to questions. And feel free to post questions as we go. We'll get to those and work them in. So let's jump into it.
Let's do it.
Okay, not to be dramatic, but is CX facing a crisis? And I think, as we interact with others in our community, in the customer experience community, in BPO space, and our clients, everyone just is being told, go automate, right? So budgets are shrinking, customer expectations are rising, AI is everywhere, but somehow customer satisfaction is dropping. It's just like a tumbling situation of change. So we want to talk about how to do this effectively. We want to be helpful here today. What's the real risk? We think it's over automation and underperformance. So we think that this is where a lot of companies are going wrong. It's not about just adding automation. It's about knowing when to stop automating So 6 months ago, automate, automate, automate. Now it's like, maybe we went a little too far, a little too crazy. So with that in mind, let's start and get into this in terms of, let's start with the considerations. So obviously you want to align your strategy with your business and customer service goals. So what you do for AI needs to fit within your broader strategy. Yes, that's common sense. But I think we've talked about this in past webinars, defining what success looks like. What are your goals in terms of efficiency, resolution rates, CSAT? Do you have a task force? We've talked about this, assessing those current workflows, determining what things should be handled by or be automated, and what workflows should be handled by actual humans that can express emotion and care. Change management, how are you communicating within internal teams is important, so everybody's on the same page. And then, of course, everybody's talking about security, data, and compliance readiness. So these are just kind of the things that we've talked about in the past. And I'm sure anybody that's looking at AI is thinking about all of these things. So with that, let's get into it, and I'll hand it over to you, Jeff, to talk about the technical foundations.
Awesome. And then just one thing to add regarding considerations. If you're new to this series, go back and take a look at some of our previous videos, because we've talked about a lot of this and a lot of the considerations that you really should take into account. But today is all about scale and being effectively scaling. So first and foremost, you have to make sure that you are choosing a platform that's flexible, because this is going to grow with your business, grow with your needs. And you need to make sure something that can handle the volumes, that handle languages. Maybe you're expanding out to different regions and you want to be able to grow that out, and different channels as well, where if you're going to be funneling everything into chat, you really just need to map out, like, what's your long-term goal and how does the scale affect that platform? You need to make sure it's compatible. Like, you might be looking at just automating a certain number of interactions right now or in a certain way, but look at your whole infrastructure. What tools do you guys use in there? What are the tools that the agents are using, and can you hook into those? Does your platform support that? If not, is it on the roadmap of that platform? Or maybe you're using a legacy platform, and maybe it's something that you need to map internally of getting that to a more modern tool that you guys can use. And then, as I talked about with the growth languages, what are the needs? What's your demographic of your customer base? And can you handle all of that? So that's really, really key. And then, as I touched on about the actual platforms, making sure that you can integrate and integrating into those systems, that's really important from a scale perspective of getting those high automation rates and the high resolution rates, and then in turn, high satisfaction from your customers. You want to be able to help them wherever they need the help. And so if you have tools that can offer those solutions, hook into them and try to make that as fluid and seamless as possible. And then, as we have touched upon, this is a continuous process. So making sure that you're constantly training and that you sort of build a roadmap out of what are you going to be doing about your knowledge management. Is there someone that's going to be working on updated solutions? Maybe you're launching new products, new service, new offerings. Making sure that that's sort of a full circle and constantly turning back into your automation strategy. Because without that information, you're going to grow the business and just grow your costs because you're not able to automate those interactions. Okay, continuous optimization. So as I just touched on there, you really need to make sure that you are always looking at this. As Sally mentioned in the early part, this is not set it and forget it. So retraining your models, whether it's updating your documentation, updating the model itself, or the information and resources, you want to make sure that the Gen AI has the solutions that are working. What are the customers needed? What are your agents telling you? And monitor those metrics, like is your CSAT suddenly tanking? Is your resolution rate going down? And what's causing this? Has the demographic of your audience changed? Is there a new something about one of your products that maybe has changed from a quality standpoint? If you monitor that, then you can address that in near real time with these models. You don't have to build out call flows every time. It's really just building that information into your knowledge base and training on that. And then human feedback loop is huge. Your agents that are handling those escalations, they are a gold mine of information of what they are learning that works. So maybe they are figuring out solutions or answers that are helping your customers, or maybe they're coming back and saying, "Hey, this is not working." We're reading a lot of escalations because and frustration from customers because they're being told X when they should be being told Y. So making sure that they are part of that process, and if you're using a CRM, which hopefully you are, to track those interactions, that there's ways to flag them, like what's the working solution, what's the point of frustration, even pulling the CSAT information from those interactions is key. And then always looking at what's new. So are there new use cases, changes in the business, changes in your policy, changes in the world? We're seeing a lot of things that are happening in the world, and that can affect your business, and people may start asking about that. So how do you provide that information and making sure that you're always current? It's the best way to lead to high CSAT, high automation, and high resolution, and therefore high ROI.
Well, when I think about that for a minute, Jeff, just to jump in, I think about as you get to the sort of the second phase, and you want to plan for the impact to your agents, of course. But something that we see that happens is one, they're going to be handling any kind of negative effect they've had from a poor chatbot implementation or any kind of voice bot. So they are going to need to be on your team and helping to handle customers because the customers will take to other channels. That's one thing. The other thing is we see that their CSAT scores could be impacted, and that's not their fault. So if your team of wonderful agents, and for this client that we're going to be talking about, we listened to the calls this week, lovely, lovely team. But if they're getting more complex interactions, there's a chance that those CSAT scores are going to be lower. So, setting expectations for the team that, it's not really fair to compare the CSAT for an AI chatbot against a human if they're not handling the same work. So it takes, leaders to understand that, to have compassion for the team, and readjust the expectations even for your own team in terms of maybe CSAT scores, and not to think that it's going to be a bad thing. But if you look at humans and what the CSAT scores were across type, contact type, then you're going to be fair. But game on if they're handling the same things. But typically that's not the way these implementations go. And as you optimize and you go along in the program, you'll see more volume getting automated and more difficult tasks being passed on to humans. I mean, this all sounds like common sense. I guess where I'm going with it is your team is your team. Your humans need to be taken care of, because sometimes they live in the world of receiving their metrics and data. And that's maybe one of the last things to consider. Oh, we want to maintain CSAT. Well, of course you do. But, it might just need to change because of the changes and who's handling what.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because it's from a common sense perspective. It seems obvious, but if you're just looking at your metrics and you're suddenly seeing a dip in your CSAT or an increase in your handle time, you're like, what's going on? Because that's traditionally what you do. You look at your data and say, oh, something's happening. There's an issue. There's a problem. But these are people that are getting escalated to your agents because there is no solution. In your knowledge, there is no information. There's no solution. They have a unique situation, and that takes more care and more work. And they may be going uphill battle. There might not be a solution. So that can lead just to a negative response rate, just because there's nothing that they can do, or they've spent an hour trying to solve a problem. So I think it's very important to realize that there is a connection there to automation, is those things will flux quite a bit.
Absolutely. Okay, so now let's talk about some potential pitfalls. Let's talk about this, Jeff. Over automation without human backup. What's the
Yeah, so
problem
this is what we talked about. So you might be looking at your business growing exponentially, and you're like, okay, we just need to slash and cut. Let's automate everything. Well, that's going to impact your customer base. You really have to do this with sort of some precision, some sort of deeper mindfulness of those interactions, and go it in a targeted way. So go after your high volume interactions that can have automation, and then just keep whittling away at it. And you'll see, if you do it with data-driven results, you'll see those impacts there versus just either like automating everything and taking CSAT and then going, oh my gosh, what do we got to do? And if your business is growing, that team that you have, you're going to need that human backup. But the difference will be that you are having maybe even the same number of people, but you're handling 10 times the amount of volume because your business is growing. So it's an important note to put that in perspective of what's your cost per interaction, and that will be going down even with keeping your human team as a backup.
Okay, so poor or outdated training data. I mean, one would say, I will just say before you even answer, you need this before you go to implement. So if you have trainers, they are the keys to success for all of these implementations, just because they're the people with the most knowledge about how things should work and what should be automated and what shouldn't. And so anyway, you need it in a training data form. And so what do you think about this, Jeff?
That's 100%. Like your trainers, the people that putting together your knowledge right now are gold when it comes to automation. And I think along with outdated training, because you wouldn't train agents and then say, see you in 5 years, we'll see how you do. Like your business is changing. That documentation needs to get updated. Like if like again, nothing sits in a silo. So the world changes, your business changes, technology changes, anything can change that can impact your solution. So you do have to adapt to that. But then I would also say proactively putting out information, like if you're going to be launching a new service, if you're adding more business types to your business model or adding new products, getting ahead of that, get that training data out there as you would for your agents. Like I think it's people sort of think of this differently, but you wouldn't abandon your agents or not tell them that you're launching a new product or offering. You want to make sure that training data is as current as possible. And then also pulling the old data that maybe is muddying the waters or just doesn't work anymore. Get that out of there.
So what about inaccurate intent recognition? I mean, we all know what that feels like when we're experiencing it ourselves. That'd be my tip. If you're looking at platforms, say, where can I go experience this as a customer myself? That experience could be how the tool works. It could be a poor implementation in terms of what you just discussed. But what do you think about this?
Yeah, I find that most days, especially when Gen AI is involved or any of these modern platforms, it's really just not being mindful of that customer journey and what they're going and what they're doing through. And so one of the ways we approach it is we do a very sort of targeted Gen AI approach. So we try to understand what the user is requesting. And this can be a mixture of language models and some old technology and new technologies and all of that, but really trying to map that journey out and giving them a very tailored experience to the issue that they're having. And that makes it more conversational, more accurate, and really just leads to a positive experience. If you sort of just throw Gen AI on the front end and say, "Good luck to you. let's try to solve it," it's not confused. It doesn't have the context. Maybe you need to collect some additional context, or again, pull from those integrations. And again, as your business grows, it's really important that you're on top of what people are like. What is the reason for content? Really, is there the nuance to that really needs to be spelled out, or having your prompting with these models change over time. That's huge, and it's funny because you could have a very successful solution that can start tanking really quickly if you're not sort of constantly tweaking and adjusting that.
Oh, and it can mushroom if you don't allow customers to get to a human. I think it's probably pretty forgiving right now, or people are like, oh, that was pretty good, but now I need to talk to a person. And if you don't allow that to happen, like we've all had those experiences, then the level of frustration is just like not good. So what about,
1,000%. We saw that back in the old IVR days where everyone's wanting to do IVR and you have like a tree that's 10,000 numbers deep. And if you look at your data, everyone's just pushing 000 and screaming agent into the phone. It's very easy to replicate that with any sort of automated bot, and you don't want that. That doesn't make anybody happy. And ensuring the people that know that, yeah, we're open. We have people standing by to help you. We're just going to collect some information or proactively offer some solutions if you know what's going on. But then, yeah, get them out of that thing and right into a human's hands to handle those interactions, because it's just going to tank your CSAT.
right. And maybe you'll lose customers because it's such a bad experience. But you can always automate more and have less handled by humans as you get better at this. But to just jump off a cliff is just that's a pitfall.
Never a good idea.
I never. What about the lack of real time monitoring to even know what's going on?
Yeah, again, data is your best friend. So looking at like what is your resolution rate or your automation rate, what is the CSAT, both from your agent's perspective and from the bots, and then looking also at on the human side, what are the interactions that the agents are handling? That's your gold mine of data. If they're suddenly seeing a huge increase in a particular type of reason for contact or maybe a particular product, then something's going on there. So it's either something going on with the product, something going on with the business. And you can pivot that and circle that back into your bot, even if it's temporarily. A lot of these changes you can do short term and then pull that information out. But getting that pulse on what's going on at whatever frequency makes sense. The higher the volume of your business, the more you scale up, the more frequent you want to keep a pulse on that because you have that much more data in such a short amount of time that it's really going to make a difference. So if you're not seeing huge spikes in volume right now, you could probably spread that out. But you really need to monitor that data, what's escalated, what's happening to your CSAT, what's the reason for contact, what products or services are maybe getting an increase in volume. The more granular you can get on that, the more you can identify trends and react quickly and try to be proactive about it.
Okay, so now let's talk about a case study and dig into this deep dive. So we have a client, Owlet, that is a tech company, and they make baby monitoring products and systems for parents. There's probably no more sensitive audience on earth than a new parent. Having been one myself, I was definitely not chill or laid back. I was very, very nervous about everything. So what we can share is that we were part of the process to help them automate 50% of the interactions and still keep their CSAT high, which is really important. Everybody wants to hear that, but it's like, again, with this very sensitive, I think this is so unique because it's a sensitive audience and it's a modern company looking to do the right thing in every way. So the challenge was, addressing outdated chatbot like the entire universe has had. Surging volume with inquiries, limited hours, single language support, and high operating costs. Not that, it's just more expensive if everything you do as you're growing as a business is handled by humans. That is not really scalable as a cost. So when we went into this, so let's jump into it, Jeff, and you can share kind of what happened, what was the approach and the results.
Yeah. So like I said, they were experiencing all this growth and we really wanted to help them and they were looking for solutions. So we really went with an AI first model where we basically put the chatbot in front of all the interactions, utilize the latest and greatest of Gen AI, and tried to keep that as conversational and as easy for parents to use as possible. Because of course they're sleep deprived, they're maybe freaking out as I did when I was a parent of a small child, so yeah, it's one of those things that it really been that parent first mindset, which is what a big important thing for the brand was key. And so that's the power of Gen AI is it has tremendous empathy, and it's a great way to have support provided for that type of an audience. As they expand more and more into the globe, languages were a huge thing. So we rolled out 21 languages for them. And that's an amazing feature. As like Sally said, we've been doing this for a few decades, and language have been hard, and they're just getting easier and easier with a lot of these Gen AI solutions. Real-time escalations, like Sally said, like we wanted to make sure, the client wanted to make sure that there was a way to get to a person. This is complicated and people need help and they're frustrated and they just want to talk to someone sometimes. So making sure that there was an easy path to get to a human and that the agent that was handling the interaction would have all the context and information about what product they have, what their issue is, and all of that going into it. So they can just jump right in and try to solve that as quick as possible. And then, of course, integrations. They use Shopify, of course, for order management, Zendesk for their CRM and others. and making sure that we could tie into that so that we could get those automations to where we want it to be. So things to consider is the solution. So language models were key. That's one of the great things is a lot of solutions out there are taking advantage of some of these big players out there. So when you do that, you're not bound by some in-house development team doing some custom model that might take a couple years to deploy. We've gone through 3 different models already with them, just constantly getting better. And you really see that in how it's reading the conversation or providing more empathy or more context to that dialogue. So that's key, and it's quite amazing how much it's changing. So being on the front lines of that and just increasing the service as that happens is really important. Content. So we work a lot with our clients on their knowledge management. It's really a good partnership, making sure that information is current, both in the information the customers have, but also what's the working solution. Look at those interactions, look at the agent conversations, and see if we can put out additional tips and tricks that might be working and working that full circle into the bot. Integrations, like I said, that's why we've had such a successful automation rate with them. And then, as always, as I've said in other platforms, making sure that we're feeding only information that's needed into these models, that we have a platform that's secure, and that the data and everything is trusted. So that's always where it will circle back. All right, so critical components. So again, the design, this parent first mindset is really important for them, really important for us. And so really just trying to make the use of the bot. We combine technologies and different methodologies at different situations. So trying to make sure it's as easy, picturing someone holding a crying baby and trying to use their phone to chat. So giving them buttons where it's important and easy instead of typing. And then when it's they're having more complex interactions, giving that Gen AI ability to have that conversation with them is quite powerful. Knowledge management, sensitivity, and guardrails are key, especially when you have a product that's dealing with small children. So if people have more serious questions or questions that maybe fall outside of the scope of what the bot should handle, is immediately escalating those and working with the client on what those guardrails should be. QA testing is something we do so much of because we've got multiple environments. We've got, of course, our development environment, our staging environment, and production. And so making sure that when we make a change that we really hammer that out. And that's everything from agents to operations to tech to the client themselves, making sure that everybody signs off and make sure that the end result is what was expected. Having a proper team to manage that on the back end. So who's designing the flows, who's managing the project as a whole, and the knowledge, which again we've emphasized that before. That is probably the biggest important role in these Gen AI bots. And then ops leadership, making sure that they buy in, they're working with the agents, they're getting the data out of what's being escalated, and maybe sort of providing solutions where we can circle that back and help increase that automation rate. And then us as a BPO, because it's we're working with our clients and their customers and their brands, is making sure that the client is as involved as we can get them to be, and as much as they want to be, to making sure that everything is staying aligned with the vision of the company, the scale, the growth. Making sure they're informing us of upcoming products, or maybe they're shifting platforms. And so having the client buy in, and this client's been great for that. They've been right alongside us the whole time. And so that's been awesome. All right. So the results. Out of the gate, we've had amazing success from the beginning. We're approaching a year into this process, and we have automated over 50% of interactions. We actually have moved. That was our original target. We're now looking at 60%, and we're moving very close to that now. So that's incredible. The cost savings, the ROI, have been amazing. So this is a program that went from limited hours to 24/7 support to 21 languages. The number of interactions that we handle for this client, if you were to do a cost per interaction of what that would be to staff that volume with the growth that they've been having, it's just tremendous. And it's quite remarkable to think that just a few years ago, you'd have to have a small army of people to be able to handle this type of scale. And now we're really just it's quite amazing. Multilingual support, like I said, the languages, we see conversations coming in from all over the world in all these different languages, and they are seamless, and it's just amazing. um, One of the other things that we found that was quite interesting was how surges happen. Anyone who's handled volumes in a call center like knows that there's random spikes that happen, and then that adds to queue times and wait times, and sort of lowers the customer experience. Well, that really levels out when you're looking at that much automation and that much sort of pre-conversation happening, or full on automated conversations. Those large humps just start to level out, and the customer experience is better. They get to an agent quicker. It's great, and then that leads to higher CSAT, which again is pretty remarkable.
You know what we didn't really touch on here? I mean, the the benefits and the ROI are huge, but we didn't say this is. I mean, I think it came through clear that this is customer facing. So I think one of the, call it a pitfall we could have added was some of these large software platforms say they have AI, and they really steer clients like out of fear to focus on agent assist. These results are like literally just skip over that. That's just stupid. I'm sorry. That's my own word. I would focus straight on the customer experience because it's that good, right? Like you want agent assist because you have fear, I think, that it's going to go haywire and do craziness. It's about the implementation. And what we've seen is not only is it good, the customers appreciate it. So it's like, it's all good. It saves money. Just go for it. Just stop the madness of like, because implementing agent assist, what's the ROI there? That you'll reduce their handle time? Sure. But if you can really take care of customers quickly and they're happy, and then you have people handling the tricky things, and extending the empathy, especially if we didn't start with the most sensitive type of case, I don't know if there's one more so than new parents. So I just have been blown away. I'm a big skeptic of anything that's, automated and irritating. So, that's my wisdom here as we get to the end. I'll say my big takeaway. But when I look at this, I mean, this is kind of impressive. 60% automated, resolved, not just automated. It's not like the bot touched it and then it handed it off. Like it is powerful. And this is just the beginning. So
I think it's a really good point that you bring up about agent assist, because I see that a lot at conferences, and a lot of the platforms are really promoting that because people are scared, especially if your business model is based on a staffed agent. And I think it's one of those things that they sort of tout these things as being amazing, like they pretty much do all the work for the agent. Well, then why not put that on the front lines and have your agents focus on what's really important? And I think people have horror stories. Like there were bots like years ago that were rogue, but they weren't based on these large language models. And that's very different. And people have learned about guardrails. People have learned about really targeting that information to prevent hallucinations. And if you have an agent that's literally copying and pasting or clicking a button of a conversation that's happening on the sidelines, that's not helpful for your costs. That's not helpful for the agent because they're going to get bored because literally they're just clicking buttons and passing through a conversation or maybe tweaking it a little bit here and there. It's really, I think, about looking at which interactions do you want that handheld touch, the human touch, and then everything else, just getting rid of it. We look at back in the day where there was all these requests about like, where's my order, right? And so it was so silly to staff humans to answer things of like, yes, it's on its way, or yes, it's not. And then of course Amazon and companies have really realized that if just be proactive, communicate that. You wouldn't think twice about having that happen now, like, or you wouldn't provide those tools to the customers to look up the status of their order or give them granular process and tracking. So it's I don't get it. I think it really agent assist comes out of either fear of the old days of these very early AI bots going sort of rogue, or just fear of business models changing. And I think that's one of the reasons we saw it, and we just thought, you know what, we're going to embrace this. And it's pretty remarkable, the service that it's been providing.
yeah, amazing. Okay, so let's talk about key takeaways. Scaling your CX. Yes, AI can do it, but only with the right foundation. I mean, that's just like where we started, aligning your goals, knowing what you're trying to solve, jumping in and picking the right technology to do it. I will say, not just trusting the big software providers. Oh, we happen to have this module. Like, that would be my 2 cents. Go out there because there's amazing things happening, and make sure you've got the best.
Yes. 100%. And then, yeah, I think too, you want to make sure that your integration, if it's not planning for launch, that you are mapping that out, looking at your whole infrastructure and saying, okay, phase one, phase two, phase three, what are the platforms that you're using? Are you going to be moving to different platforms and making sure, because if you're going to be hooking everything through a solution, you want to make sure that it's forward thinking and can connect with all of those tools that you use. If your agents use it, if the customers can use it, the bot should be able to use it.
Definitely. Uh, Not one and done by a mile. Like I think you said, Jeff, keep iterating, continuous optimization. And it does, in fact, work that way. So if you have those fears that we were just talking about, you just step into it. You don't have to be, you could still have your team, and you could have the sensitivity set very high and have it hand off. And know over time, as you build confidence and you see what your customers are experiencing, you're regularly monitoring this and getting that feedback loop. It can be a beautiful thing.
1,000%. And I think along with the one and done, but not being that and tweaking that, you want to make sure your guardrails are in place. Like, these are powerful. They will talk forever. They'll talk your ear off. But you want to make sure that they're not doing things that they're not supposed to. So this could be around compliance. It could be around certain sensitive models, but it could also be like, maybe you don't want your bot to talk about your competitors. Maybe you do. And so putting those in place. But it also be guardrails if you're pulling content and pulling knowledge, making sure it's pulling as targeted as possible. So we have different strategies and techniques here we use here to make sure that it's pulling from content that is specific to what the customer is looking for. Ensures high accuracy, and then you, of course, get your automation rate out of there.
And finally, real results require smart, human aware strategy, meaning, blending automation with real people that can be sympathetic, empathetic. That's what's going to really create success. I think, especially now, I think this will all get better, but right now, this delicate balance of, people will tolerate a certain amount of irritation because they're so used to a lot of irritation in the customer service world, just as customers. And so, just having a strategy, having everybody aligned, I think that's key.
1,000%.
So if you are looking at this and you would like Jeff and I to jump on a 15-minute call, we're happy to help you. We're not salespeople, don't worry. But we do love the customer experience. And then we spend half of our days just talking about, the balance of humans and AI and customer experience across all channels and all platforms. So we'd be happy to help you if you want to spend a few minutes with us. Have us take a look at your website or your customer service channels, or test them for you, or give you advice. We're happy to chat with you.
Yeah, 1,000%. I think too, if you're having struggles with your growth, if you're scaling up and really looking at like, how do we sustain this? Like we've seen so many brands grow like exponentially and really work closely with them. So we'd be happy to share that feedback, share that wisdom, and have that conversation.
I mean, that's exactly what we've seen, right? So a beautiful implementation that hasn't taken away the human component, but has helped the brand scale. So instead of growing a team that's now you've got 100 agents and 200 agents, and it's a solution that can actually scale in line with a business. So it's pretty cool what we're facing right now.
Yeah,
So if you have questions, I forgot, did I say this at the beginning, Jeff? Like, everybody share your questions. I saw one early on that was, we get asked all the time, and that is, where do you start in terms of automation if scale is your focus?
Yeah, so I think we touched on some of this here. So first of all, like, wait, what's your volume going to be? Where is it coming from, right? So this is if it's coming from all over the world, or like you're going to want the multilingual support. You're going to want 24/7. We have a lot of time zones in the world, and you may not be staffed for that. But looking at what the operation is and the tools that you're using, it's really key. So if you can map all that out, and then I think the really important thing is what's the state of your knowledge? Like, do you have trainers? Do you have people who are creating your knowledge on your website? If that's in really good shape, then you've got all of that mapped out. Now you need to find a solution, and it could be just the platform, or it could be a platform with a provider like ours, of course, us at VIP, where we are focused on making sure that that customer journey doesn't suffer for those automation goals. So I think it's really a good way to do it is just whiteboard it out. Like map out your growth. What's that volume look like? Because that's going to give you an idea of what your cost is going to be and what your potential savings are. Where the people are coming from. You don't necessarily know what they're going to be asking you in 5 years, but where in the world? What's your goal from a growth standpoint there? And then the tools. I think looking at what's in place right now. If there's outdated technology, you're going to be replacing. Making sure that you have some potential solutions there, so that you can go to your provider and say, listen, we might go with one of these 3 solutions. Do you integrate with them? Do they work with your platform? We really want to have that for an automation standpoint. I think that's really key. So just a simple whiteboard or having a conversation, we'd be happy to talk to you about that. I think is vital. You don't want to go in this blind and then do all this work and then have a solution that can't handle when your volume doubles.
Thank you, Jeff. Another question we always get answered has to do with, if you have a lot of languages, to me, this is just eureka, and I'll answer the question myself. But if multilingual is a issue to be addressed, how do you view that as you look at AI, right? And you're trying to handle that in terms of scale?
So I think this is one of those, like, I don't know if it's an unspoken secret or I think that people don't quite understand, but like these language models, you can train them full on in English or your native language, put all your documentation in there, and you can run a full solution with a single language team, even for escalation, because all the translation happens in real time. And the translation's gotten so good, and it's quite amazing to like watch these conversations with the bot, and then even some of them to get escalated. No, I didn't know that person spoke German. No, well, they don't actually. That's the real time translation that's happening, and it's back and forth. It's seamless. There's no delay. Like back in the day, we used to have like translation services where you'd have people helping with those conversations, and all this cost, and of course, then trying to find people that speak all these languages, even if your volume is low for that particular language, just to offer that support. And it becomes effortless with these platforms. So that's the amazing thing, is anybody can become like global overnight from a support perspective, because the language is just there, and it's a really smart way to make sure your audience is getting the support that they needed by speaking in their native tongue.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're not even talking about this topic, but it becomes more about having the humans that are involved in the scenario of customer service have more context for in country. Of course, we think that, like, if you have people in the US, they're better served, in my opinion, or they get to interact with people in the US just out of context, and vice versa. So if you take just the language off the table and you focus strictly on the cultural components and the things that matter, like, I think that is just a win-win.
Oh, huge. It's huge win. And you get to focus on the people, right? Who are the people that you're in your organization that provide amazing service? Like, it just because maybe they don't speak French or they don't speak Spanish doesn't mean that they don't have a place anymore. And in fact, if they have more of a place than ever, because they're providing that amazing service for those more complex interactions. And then the translation happens in real time. So I think that it really shines a spotlight on what's the most important. Who are your superstars, regardless of what they speak?
Exactly. Okay. Well, thank you, Jeff. And thank you, everyone. If you would like to connect with us, Here is our information. Our first names, last names at vipdeskconnect.com. Sally.Hurley, Jeff.Cramp, Kyle.Schweitzer, who can help us come together if you need our help and support. But we're grateful you joined us. Jeff, you're amazing. Thank you for joining again. It's always fun.
Thanks for having me. I love these conversations. I could just ramble on. At least it could be 3 hours if we didn't get cut off here.
We'll just sit here and anybody have more questions. Yeah, we'll be here all day.
Exactly.
No, we won't do that to everybody. Thank you so much. I hope everybody has a great day. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.